So this week I got a message from a lady whose husband had recently become red-pilled. And I had, up until that point, never considered what it might be like for a woman to have a partner suddenly take the red pill. My husband was red-pilled when I met him. I've never had that problem. It's never occurred to me. And it is probably very unnerving for a woman who probably doesn't know much, if anything, about the red pill to suddenly have a significant other take the red pill. And so right away I was thinking, okay, I need to make a video for women who are in these circumstances so that they can, navigate this new terrain that they're going to be in, because new things can be terrifying. And something new like an entire system of thought, which, red pill is, it's very complicated, it's very complex. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of different ideas, there's a lot of different opinions. It's probably quite intimidating. And it's a men's world. The red pill is mostly men. There aren't a lot of women talking about the red pill. And so there's probably not like a survival guide for women whose husbands suddenly take the red pill. Like that's probably not out there in the world for you. And so I thought, I need to talk about this. And so that's what I'm going to try to do here. I have the feeling that I'm barely going to scratch the surface, but I can at least start, and then I'll post more videos as ideas and thoughts come to me. I promised everybody I was going to be doing a review of Chapter 8 of the Mystery Method. I'm bumping that one back to next week because this has just kind of kept my mind very busy. The red pill, if you are unfamiliar where the term comes from, and this is kind of one of the first things anyone ever introduces you to with the red pill, comes from a scene in the movie The Matrix. If you've never seen the movie, there's a character named Morpheus who's very familiar with the Matrix, knows what it is, and there's a character named Neo who's been seeking out the Matrix because he's vaguely aware of it, but he doesn't know what it is. And Morpheus talks to Neo and tells him that the Matrix is always there in his mind, like a splinter in his mind. That's what I think he said. And he presents Neo with two pills, a blue pill and a red pill. You take the blue pill and you wake up in your bed and all of this was just a bad dream. You take the red pill and you see the Matrix for what it really is. You see the truth. And that is what the red pill is for men. So if you're wondering why your husband, boyfriend, fiance is suddenly so taken with this and so convinced that it's right, even though he's just now encountered the idea. Men go through their lives frequently with this sense that something is not quite right. And they can't put their finger on it, and it's always there, like a splinter in their mind. Just quietly under the surface, something's not quite adding up. It's like the world is made up of puzzle pieces, and the puzzle pieces don't fit together. And there are certain places where the puzzle pieces should fit, and they don't. And at some point, something happens, and everything snaps into place. Everything suddenly makes sense. Everything fits together. And I haven't necessarily experienced that with the red pill, but I've experienced that with other ideas. Every once in a while, you have a moment of epiphany, and everything just snaps together like a rubber band. And you know that this is how the world is put together. This is the truth. This makes sense. And it's probably very difficult for you if you are a woman who is in a relationship with a guy who's suddenly taken the red pill, because the way you make that kind of a discovery, you know it here before you know it here. And men might not want to hear this so much. They like to think that they're all logical, but it's an intuitive thing. So you sense it intuitively first. You know that's how it's all put together. It makes perfect sense. You try to say it, and you haven't taken the time to think it through and put it into words inside your head. And so when you try to say it, it comes out as this big garbled mass, and it doesn't make any kind of sense, which I'm sure if that's happening to you as the partner of a man who's suddenly been red-pilled, that's kind of probably a little alarming and a little scary. It's like he's got all these new ideas and I don't know what any of them mean, and He's not necessarily going to be able to communicate them very well to you because it's new. He hasn't had the time to sit around and think through them and comb them together and put them neatly into little organized packets of words. And that's something that comes later. That's something that comes with time if you take the time to sit around and think about it. One of the things that might help if he really, really wants to talk about it and you just don't feel comfortable talking to him about it, or if it's too difficult for you to understand, number one, tell him that it's a lot of information to take up and it's going to take time because it is a lot of new information to upload. It's not going to happen right away for you. And so you have to have, you need to have patience with this. Number two, tell him that it's helpful to write things down and to write them all out and put them into words and then read through what you wrote and see if it makes sense. That can maybe help to kind of organize things in a way that he can communicate them more clearly to you while also not just bombarding you with information. Because you have to do that. You have to take the time to just fit it all into words inside your head, and you have to, usually if you speak it, it helps to organize it, which is probably why he's trying to tell you about all this stuff. Your husband, your significant other, he's probably trying to tell you about all this because he has to organize all this new information that's suddenly in his head. And the best way to do that is to speak it. But if you can't speak it, write it. And that might help. As far as introducing yourself to the red pill, well, that can be kind of a difficult thing to do. It can be very daunting. There is, first of all, a lot of new information. There's a lot of new words. There's not a lot of new terms. There's a lot of new concepts, and there's a ton of acronyms, which can be really, really annoying because a lot of guys on red pill forums, they just type out the acronyms and then you have to go look them up. Like, what does that mean? It can be tedious, but just kind of try to be patient, bear with it. You'll get there. It takes time to get into the swing of things. Don't feel like you need to dive into it head first. I was thinking, before making this video about some good red pilled information that you can kind of do as introductory stuff before you get into the hard stuff. And when I say hard, I don't mean hard as in difficult, I mean hard as in liquor. There's guys out there who are very, very jaded. And I mean, there's this guy I listen to who's MGTOW, like totally will not have anything to do with women, thinks that it's unhealthy to be around women, doesn't want to have women in his life, doesn't ever want to have a relationship with women. He is done with women. And he's a very well thought out, very intellectual man. And I don't agree with him on certain things, but he has a lot of really interesting, well thought out stuff that he says. And so I listen to him, even though he's MGTOW, which means men going their own way. Basically, that's as far to the extreme of the red pill as you can kind of go, I think. And that's what you hear about when you hear about red pill. You hear about MGTOW, men going their own way, men who've just completely decided enough with the women. And frequently they're described as being angry. And I have met a lot of angry MGTOW guys. They're not always angry, but plenty of them are. That's what you hear about when you hear about red pill. That's not all red pill men. Most red pill men are not necessarily MGTOW. There are a lot of red pill men who are they're just focused on becoming better men. And that's one of the big ideas of the red pill. And that's something that it's kind of handy to know if you suddenly have a partner who's taken the red pill. It's like, what is the red pill all about? Well, for a lot of guys, it's about self-improvement. It's about becoming better men. It's about becoming more masculine men and embracing their masculinity in a healthy, positive way. So if you've ever heard about anything like toxic masculinity, you might have heard about that, toxic masculinity. Red pill is about embracing masculinity in a way that is healthy and beneficial to men and also to their partners. A lot of the time to their partners. You're going to hear, they're going to be negative people in the red pill community. They're going to be negative people in any community. Anywhere you go, there are going to be people who are angry, unhealthy, not good people. Most of the time, though, for many, many men, it's about becoming truer, better men. So, don't be too alarmed about it. There's a lot of good stuff can come from the red pill. I'm trying to think of some red pilled people that you can listen to, some red pill information, because the gal I was talking to was saying that she was listening to Rollo Tomassi. And Tomassi has a lot of good information. Like his book, I just finished reviewing it. It was really fun. I definitely enjoyed it. He isn't a huge fan of marriage. Like he's married, and he has good reasons for that. Like legally, when a man marries a woman, he gives up a lot of his legal rights and freedoms. A lot of them. And so a lot of men in the red pill community look at it and say, if you get married, which is awesome, I'm a big personal supporter of marriage. If you get married, a lot of your legal rights and freedoms go away immediately. And you can't really get them back. So how do you do that? Like, how do you manage to have a healthy, successful marital relationship with someone when a lot of your freedom has just been completely eroded? So maybe Tomasi isn't necessarily the guy you want to start off with. Very good writer, very interesting book. Maybe not the kind of thing you want to start with reading. I'm guessing, and I'm hoping that everybody is gonna like leave comments for me on good red pill intros for women. I would be tempted to say Jordan Peterson. Like, you might have heard bad things about Jordan Peterson. Don't listen to his political stuff. That's not necessarily relevant. Listen to a lot of his psychological lectures. He's a professor. He gives lectures. A lot of people have taken those lectures and chopped them down into little like tidbits, like 3 minutes, 15 minutes, little sections. Listen to that. Listen, like you can tell when he's lecturing, he's standing in the middle of a classroom. There's students everywhere. You can kind of see it. Listen to those clips and snippets, particularly like stuff he has on relationships, stuff he has on men and women. I think that would be a very gentle and not intimidating introduction to the red pill. A lot of guys who are red pill might say, well, that's not really red pill, that's blue pill, that's purple pill, that's, whatever. I think, if you're just going to dip your toe in the water, that's a good place to start. I could be wrong. I'm sure there are going to be some guys in the comment section who are going to have some really good examples of good intro to red pill stuff that women can kind of take in so that they can kind of try to understand what's going on in their significant others' lives a little better without like scaring the living shit out of yourself. Because some guys like I said, I listen to MGTOW guys who are pretty distrustful of women, and it can be really, really depressing to hear that if you're a woman who's got a partner who's suddenly into this stuff. Now, if it's any reassurance, I've been married to a guy who's pretty red pilled for a long time, and he's not a part of the red pill community. I don't think he really cares about the red pill community. I've been more involved in the red pill community than he is, and we have a great marriage. We have a very healthy marriage. It's a very loving marriage. It's a very trusting marriage. Like, you can be married and be red pilled and not have an unhealthy relationship. And it might be helpful to take a look at what you think a healthy relationship is, because there are things that don't go away with the red pill, or at the very least shouldn't go away with the red pill. You should be able to trust each other. You should still have respect for one another. That should still be there. There are a lot of guys that I've seen who are red-pilled who think that with women they can just kind of, train them like dogs. Like I'm reading Mystery Method right now. I kind of mentioned it briefly that I've been reviewing it on a kind of a chapter-by-chapter basis. I like Mystery Method in the sense that he understands what women want a lot of the time. And he describes it in a way that men are going to understand how to give women what they want. The thing that I don't like about Mystery is that he thinks that by giving women what they want, we're tricking women into being attracted to them. And that's not exactly right. Women are not necessarily going to be, you know, house pets or trained dogs. We're not idiots. And I think it's very easy for some guys in the red pill community to forget that. And that might be an alarming thing too. It might be one of those things like, okay, so what do you mean? What do you mean some guys think we're all idiots? The red pill community is also combined with a lot of the pickup artist community. And pickup artists, in case you're not familiar, although you probably are familiar, are guys who literally have made an art form out of picking up hot women and sleeping with them. And I personally have known multiple pickup artists when I was single before I met my husband. They're not as bad as you might think they are. They are prone to certain flaws in thinking, and one of them is assuming that women are easier to trick or train than they actually are. As far as training is concerned, human beings are remarkably trainable. We're all social creatures, and so we all have tendencies to respond to certain stimuli in certain rather predictable ways. That doesn't mean that we're dogs that are going to jump through hoops. It's not the same thing. And somebody who's new to the pickup artist community is going to be thinking along those lines, like, oh, if I do X, Y, and Z, women will respond like this. And so women are programmable like computers, and we're not. But it takes a while to figure that out. And there are a lot of guys who are just incredibly jaded and incredibly bitter, and they look at it and they say, okay, a woman is, I had a guy commenting the other day, a woman is only good for sex and procreation. You encounter something like that in the red pill community, and you're probably going to run away screaming, like, oh my God, do people really think this? And it's like, well, some people do, but they're kind of dumb. They're being idiots. It's not that they're necessarily idiotic. They're just taking a moment to, they're being dumb about that. They're being really dumb. And you got to just realize that they're not being their best selves at that moment when they say things like that. I think that the majority of men, the vast majority, they want a partner. They want a woman who's going to be a companion to them. The person that you travel through life with. That's a big deal. Your spouse is going to be someone that you're going to have with you for the rest of your life. And so a woman can't just be a pair of great tits and a nice ass. She has to be a companion, someone to take a long journey with. Men who are saying women are just there to be pretty, women are just there to be attractive, women are just there for sex or procreation, most of those men are single. And there's a reason, and that's the reason. That's not how relationships really work. That's not how healthy relationships work. And that's not how your marriage to your boyfriend, fiance, spouse is going to work out in the long run. You have to be a companion. I think I was putting it to this lady at one point as you're like a second in command. Men, and this is one of the ideas of the red pill community that's going to take maybe a little bit of getting used to, men tend to take leadership roles. And if you sit back and think about it, you can kind of see that happening in the world around you, either in your relationship or in other relationships that you've been in, or relationships that you've observed other people being in. Men tend to be the leader. They tend to just take that role on naturally. And women tend to follow the leadership of their husbands, partners, significant others, boyfriends. They tend to follow that leadership. That's just something that you kind of tend to gravitate into. That's just something that nearly all women just tend to fall into very naturally. The mistake is believing that one person being the leader and the other person being the follower makes the person who's the leader somehow better than the other person. This is a logical fallacy, I think. A leader is not successful as a leader unless he has the loyalty of his followers. Followers without a leader are lost, but a leader without followers is just alone. You need each other to work together. You need each other to form a team and a unit. A good leader needs good followers for any of his endeavors to be successful. If you have a great leader and you stick him with a bunch of people who are horrible, horrible followers, it doesn't matter how good he is, he's going to be fighting an uphill battle. If you take great followers and you put them with a leader who is a bad leader, it doesn't matter how great they are. They're also going to be kind of lost at sea. You need both. You need good leadership, and you also need loyal followers. United, you will always be able to achieve more than you would have been able to achieve individually. It's an important thing to remember, and I don't know how many women who are encountering this are actually going to have this particular problem, but it's important to remember that, you should trust your husband as a good leader. You should be able to follow him as a leader. That's kind of the way everything was designed. That's kind of the way human beings were designed. But he needs to actually be a good leader to you. And what the red pill does for many, many men is teach them how to be good leaders to women and to the people around them. How to fall into that natural position that they might not have actually learned to take hold of as well as they should have. There are a lot of men who don't know how to embrace their masculinity in a positive and healthy way in this society. And that's what the red pill teaches men. How to be a good leader instead of simply how to embrace your masculinity and live a healthy, positive, masculine life. So the discover of the red pill for, I'd say, nearly all of you, it should be a very positive thing. As scary and new and intimidating as it can be at first, it's a good thing. It's going to take some adjustment because it's a big thing and it's a new thing, and new large changes take time and adjustment. And with all that being said, my best recommendation to kind of acquaint yourself with these ideas, I think Jordan Peterson would be a good one. Again, his student lectures, his psychology lectures, anything he has to say about relationships can be really interesting. That, and I think it would be worthwhile to check the comments section and see if anybody else has any recommendations for beginner red pill stuff. As far as those of you who normally watch my videos, who are probably much more acquainted with red pill stuff than I am, if you would be so kind, leave any links to any good red pill sources that you might have, and we'll see where this goes, and we'll see if this helps anybody. I'll talk to you guys later.